Greetings, citizens, and welcome to another edition of Flashpoint, a program of issues and ideas that's viewed on televisions and also on people's computers and on people's iPods, and now has lots and lots of episodes. Because you see, Flashpoint is a program of issues and ideas brought to you by the Lawrence Debate Union, an endowed co-curricular activity at the University of Vermont that trains UVM students, like these here, in the arts and skills of debating, and then has them represent the University of Vermont in educational and competitive debates throughout the nation and throughout the world. One of the other things the Lawrence Debate Union does to promote discussion and discourse in our community is to bring you Flashpoint. My name is Alfred C. Snyder. I'm the Edwin W. Lawrence Professor of Forensics at the University of Vermont. Ain't that a mouthful? But I'm proud to be that, and I will be your facilitator in this digital rights managed program. Let's meet our panelists for this week's edition of Flashpoint. On my far left, I have John Dolan Meany, better known as Jake. You come from the West Coast, and you're a senior at the University of Vermont. Are you smiling about that?
Yeah, 4 weeks and I'm out of here. I'm very excited.
Very good. But how will you get all that stuff back to California?
Shipping agency or monkeys with wings. The research is still in the infancy, but we'll see.
Okay, Jake, I want to congratulate you. I understand you just placed 5th at the U.S. Universities Debate Championship in California.
Yes, I did.
Could you tell us anything about that event?
We went there and we were one of the least experienced teams, but one of also the most successful. So basically, it shows that you don't need to go to debate tournaments to do well in debate. You just have to be a critical thinker.
Ah, yes. Okay, well, congratulations. I'm not sure it's that easy. And one of the things we're trying to do in the Lawrence Debate Union is to expand our participation in world's format debate. Do you think that's a good idea?
I think it is the best format of debate that exists currently, and I think that if anyone's watching the show and they go to UVM, you should debate world schools. It is the most fun I've ever had at a debate tournament, the most engaging, the most interesting, and I think at this level, the most I've ever learned is from world school style. So I encourage
world
people.
University style.
World schools, world universities. It's just a semantic game.
I see. Okay. All right. Well, enough of that then. If it's just a semantic game, let's go to on my immediate left. We have Joe Torda. Joe, you're a junior.
That's correct.
And you're from Massachusetts.
Yep, Boston.
Okay. What about? Don't you think it's kind of a regionalist slur? People are like, ooh, Massachusetts.
Yeah, I don't really like that. I get the mass hole comments sometimes. It's sort of, we get a bad rep.
And this is your third Flashpoint.
It is.
What'd you think of your first two?
Lots of fun. I got to shoot my mouth off quite a bit, and I feel like I learned some things.
Okay, all right, cool. On my right, we have a frosh person, a first-year student. In England, they would call you a fresher. Sam Ricker, how are you?
Pretty good.
Where you come from?
Vershire, Vermont.
Where, Vermont?
Vershire.
Vershire, where's that?
Right where Vermont and New Hampshire meet in the middle, right near the Connecticut River.
On the Connecticut River. Near Claremont?
That's pretty close.
That's pretty close. Okay, what's your major?
Economics.
Economics. Do you have a minor yet?
Philosophy.
Philosophy. Okay.
Setting myself up for law.
All
Maybe.
Right, maybe. And if the law still exists, you'll be ready for it. And you're fairly new to UVM debate. When did you join?
I started coming to the meetings in the beginning of the first semester, but that was entirely pointless until I got indoctrinated in the beginning of the second semester.
Okay, well, good. We're glad to have you, and welcome to Flashpoint. And welcome to our topic. You see, we are here with show number 339. Ladies and gentlemen, we are determined, if nothing else, and we're here to talk about media copyright. Well, in the early days of radio, it was all pretty cool. No one was afraid that if a record got played, anybody could tape it because there was no way to tape it. And then it was very difficult because the only tape recorders had big, huge reels, and it was very cumbersome. And then there was the cassette deck. That made it a little easier. And then CDs were a really big breakthrough because nobody had CD copiers. And since there were digital quality CDs, everybody wanted music in that digital form, but they couldn't get them. But technology caught up again. And all of a sudden, we have ways to burn our own CDs. And now the internet supplies ways to download music which has been more and more popular in recent years, and also television shows, movies, and other forms of media. So we confront the modern issues of media copyright, and is it a good idea? How strict should it be? Does it infringe on people's ability to enjoy? That and much more will we be dealing with on this week's edition of Flashpoint. Let's talk about the current situation. You're University of Vermont students. Let's say that I was a University of Vermont student and wanted to download music, right? Would the university like that? Would they check me out? Would they stop me? What do you know?
Well, I mean, it is against the law. So if you're acting through the university servers, they'd probably be pretty upset. And there have been recent instances where larger companies have cracked down on this by threatening lawsuits on the universities unless they gave up specific users that were acting on their servers and brought legal action against the users themselves as opposed to the university.
Mm-hmm. So they're saying to the university, we're going to bust you unless you turn over people in the university who are downloading illegal music.
Exactly.
Okay. And so the university sort of pins you. But that doesn't really happen, does it?
No, it does happen. People get letters from it. And in fact, the University of Vermont is the type of school that's being targeted right now, that they go after the big state schools. If you look at the top 5 schools that are being targeted, it's USC, University of Michigan, other big schools.
I believe Ohio as
Ohio
well.
is another big one. That they're going after the big ones, but UVM's right next on the list of people on the chopping block.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And how would they know? Do they have records of what you're downloading? And I mean, if you download to your PC or your Mac, if you're lucky, in the dormitory, I mean, how do they know what's coming through the pipe?
Well, I'm not sure exactly, but I think the way it works is that you have an IP address. Every user on a specific network has an individual address that corresponds to their computer. And if it shows that you've been, downloading something from a URL that, I don't know, is of like a downloading client somewhere where you can download this stuff, and it's linked to your specific computer name, then the university can infer that you have been downloading illegal material. I don't know.
Okay, so the record industry, and mostly it's the RIAA who's doing this, they're mostly interested in just deterring people, I think. And so, do they actually prosecute people or just threat to prosecute?
No, they do bring lawsuits to court, and I believe the artist values the song at up to $200,000 per song. However, if you download hundreds of songs, no one can pay that amount of money. So they usually settle out of court for some unknown amount of thousands of dollars.
And that's actually the strategy they use, that they send letters to students. And I know students that this has happened to, that they say, we're suing you for $350,000. And then their idea is that you'll settle for $3,000 to $5,000 out of court, which most college students, that's just an exorbitant amount of money to pay.
Yeah. Okay. Is this pretty much universally supported by the artists themselves, or some artists don't approve of threatening their fans, or what do you know?
Well, I know that a number of artists, contemporary artists, have sort of embraced this downloading culture and have begun to release a number of unsolicited albums through this technology, and they just use it as a means of just furthering their own art and figuring out ways to produce albums and release them independent of a record label they may be signed to, or if they're not signed, to get their work out there to the public. So I mean, there are certainly cases where artists really are in favor of the technology and of this free downloading of music.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But do those tend to be more progressive, smaller artists trying to make it big, or
that's not true, actually.
What does Barry Manilow think?
Well, you get bands like Nirvana, well, not Nirvana, Metallica's had a unbelievable battle, and they hate the industry. But I think the important thing to realize is, and I think it's the most effective tool of the record industry, is this is a complete mask. It's not the artists that are losing money. The artists don't really have a stake. Most of the songs are actually bought and copyrighted by record producers, people that probably have zero music talent themselves.
Yeah.
So it's not like the artists are starving. They, lose money when actually records get sold because they're only getting, 0.5%. What's happening is someone in a $5,000 suit is losing the ability to buy another ivory back scratcher. And so I think that's the problem, and I don't think, then that's why I think artists support it, because it's giving them increased use and increased promotion. That's actually free advertisement.
Okay, well, before we get into the arguments for and against it, I just want to review the procedures. Let's take the iTunes Music Store that Apple has. Now, I know there have been some changes announced, but in the traditional iTunes Music Store, what happens? You go up there and you buy a song for 99 cents. And is that the end of the story?
Well, up until very recently, I believe that once you downloaded a song, you didn't actually own the song itself. You owned a version of the song that you could only had a limited amount of use of. You could only burn a certain amount of CDs with this, or put it on a certain amount of hard drives. So that if you wanted this song on your computer hard drive, then say your laptop and also your iPod, you were only limited to a certain amount of places where this song itself could be.
Yeah, and I understand the number is 5. You can have 5 authorized machines. And I've already had problems of, I have too many machines apparently for that, so that's a problem. And it's also in a different format. It's not in the traditional MP3 format. It's in the AAC format, and so it doesn't even play on some kinds of MP3 players. Okay, what are the arguments that the recording industry and some artists are making in favor of this? And I'll just start with one, and that is, if people download music for free, they won't buy it, and that will hurt the recording industry and the artists. What do you think of that argument?
Well, I think it's true to a large extent. I mean, there was an article published that CD sales were down 20% in 2006. There's no longer huge blockbuster albums like NSYNC or Britney Spears that sell tens of millions of copies. People aren't just buying them as much.
Thank God.
I mean, you could argue the quality of music has declined or tastes have changed, but people are buying fewer CDs. That is a proven fact.
Okay, so you think that's true? Are there other reasons why people aren't buying music as opposed to downloads?
Well, we're looking at this kind of in a domestic scope, and that's important. I think it's an issue that affects all of us. But in an international scope, that intellectual property rights are a mainstay when you have countries like China that are abusing it, and it's used to fuel all sorts of international crime networks, is used in illegal pirating, that there's all these other issues that are used and connected and inextricably linked with this issue. So some people look at this as a way of fostering a criminal culture in support of, not supporting the law and actually degrading the legal establishment that's created. And because it's done on such a micro level, that's what becomes important, that an individual is making that decision on their own to break that law. Not once, not twice, but constantly and hundreds of times over a day, and people feel that erodes a sense of ownership, and our society is built on a private ownership society.
What do you think about that argument?
I think it's ridiculous.
Why?
Well, first of all, if I was going to directly steal from an artist, like I've mentioned before, I could see that problem. But I'm not stealing from an artist. I'm stealing from someone who distributes the music, and I don't feel they have as much of an inherent right to that property. Secondly, I think I'm promoting private property because as soon as you release something and you wish for it to be on a public forum, which is the inherent nature of music, like you want more people to listen to it, I think it's the responsibility to understand that the more people listen to it, the better it is. And thirdly, I'd have to say that this is not, I think people are too inherent on old technology. This is like people attacking tapes or CDs for, destroying the 8-track. I think just the CD is going the way of the dinosaur. It's becoming extinct. It's not popular anymore. No one wants to buy $17 from a CD. Like most people would agree, where they only like 10 songs, 5 songs. I think it's moving in the way of iTunes, and I think record companies are not moving forward with that. You can see this also in the car industry, where you had companies like Ford or Toyota that didn't want to move forward progressively on issues like electric cars, but now have lost the market to other companies like Honda, which are moving forward. And so I think either record companies get on the bandwagon and start realizing this is the wave of the future, or they can sit back and continue to lose money, and that's fine with me. They're rich enough as it is.
I know now that at Borders they have DVD and CD sniffing dogs. Now, I don't know how the dogs can tell where a DVD or a CD is, but I was reading these stories about they have them, and they walk around and smell your luggage, and they find, because a lot of people going to specifically Asian countries will say, wow, look at all this cheap stuff. I'll buy these movies and I'll buy whatever because it's all counterfeit and very cheap, and then they bust you on the way back. So that's an indication that they're much more serious about it. I think another reason why the music industry is in decline is that, you know, there's not as much good music. I think that the record companies have become very conservative in who they want to sign and who they want to back and who they want to promote, because they're not in tune with what the public is interested in, and because sales are declining already, they're more cautious about who they sign and dish money out to. So, I mean, a lot of the most exciting music is being released by people who release straight to the internet.
Yep.
You know, and you just get it right away, and they expect you to do that. And when you're a musician and you're getting 0.5%, right, of the sales of your CD, and all of a sudden you have an opportunity to get 2%, wow, what a deal! So I'm surprised more groups don't sell their songs for like 20 cents or something, because it's more than they would get from the industry.
I think a lot of artists
versus
would
CD.
love to do that too, but the problem is they're in long-term contracts with these record companies and they can't sell them. And you know, I understand the argument that music is getting worse, and I understand that record companies are conservative, but I don't think it's them alone. I think it's part of a greater conservative movement that's going across all America. That you can see that there's always going to be the conservative music. It's not like all of a sudden they were radical and then they threw in their bongs and, you know, hippie outfits and started wearing suits and drinking scotch. I think it's really just been, that's always the way it is, and we can look back and say this was the music that defined the generation and look at that stuff. But if you look, most of the bands that were great were underground and then through word of mouth increase. So I think, why aren't bands promoting this? Because they're stuck in some sort of nuanced slavery of being stuck by these record companies.
No, I think the idea that music has inherently become worse is ridiculous. I think that artistic influence has changed. I think that the way that music is released has changed, and I think that there are a number of artists that are adapting to, you know, contemporary artistic, techniques, and they're doing things that, as you said, that record companies may not recognize as being, you know, marketable, but that this is still cutting edge and it's still fantastic artistically. And I am wholeheartedly in support of the idea that music now may be, you know, harder to grasp for some record exec somewhere, but it's still a like hugely artistic movement that is intensely creative, and it's doing things that have not been done before in ways that I personally, I love. Like, I think it's ridiculous to claim that music has, you know, reached a brick wall, a creative brick wall, and that people aren't making good music anymore. It's just not true.
Well, I'm reminded of the member of Congress who wanted in 1902 to ban the patent office because everything important had already been discovered. So we didn't need patents anymore. But on this old conservative music thing, I think it's also had a big effect on people who run used record stores. I know that in Boston in the last year, 4 major used record stores have gone out of business because people like me who want, you know, oh yeah, I remember this Led Zeppelin song. I like to hear that. What was it? Now I go to iTunes, I find exactly the song I want. I download it for 99 cents. And the fact that all these old music catalogs have been put online have really hurt the kind of, you know, used music stores. And then there's the whole collector issue. Oh, I have a, you know, vinyl edition of the Iron Butterflies first record, and it's worth $800 or whatever. And now, you know, $10, boom, you get all the cuts off it in perfect, you know, in perfect shape.
Well, the first thing I have to
Is
say,
that good or bad?
Well, Indigada Vita just sounds better on vinyl. That's just a fact,
Okay,
all right?
sorry.
And secondly, that's like the argument about people saying, what about the used cassette store I have, or the used 8-track player, or what about, you know, I just think that's ridiculous that to say that, you know, because the times have changed that we should hold on to some sort of old, you know, technological value, then there'd be no advancement in society whatsoever, you know? We should keep the horse. What happened to all those horse farms that existed and were teaching people? Gosh, that was a horrible phase.
There is a time where technology becomes obsolete. And, you know, in the eyes of some collectors, yeah, you're still going to want that, you know, the original cut of like whatever, but it doesn't matter in the I don't know, on the
No,
larger scale.
I actually agree with you. I think the music's what's important. That's why I'm converting all my vinyl to MP3s. And if I want an old song, I buy it online instead of going to the used record store where it's likely warped and scratched and whatever. Okay, how about this argument that even if the rights to the song belong to the record company, if you're downloading it without their permission, you're stealing.
I think everyone's gone and seen a movie recently, and I don't know, I see this all the time in theaters in California, but at the beginning of the movie, now they show a bunch of commercials, and they show this advertisement that says, you wouldn't steal a wallet, you wouldn't steal a car, you wouldn't steal an ATM card, downloading illegal movies is stealing. And I think, yes, in some ways it's stealing, but first of all, if we're going to be stealing from anyone, let's steal from record companies, because they've been ripping us off time and time again, trying to throw down our throats.
Okay, Robin
lowest
Hood.
common. hey, if I have to listen to one more Chingy or one more really bad rap or pop artist that they want to give to me because it's the lowest common denominator and it can sell music and they want to destroy the creativity, then fine, I say steal from them. They're evil people. And secondly, I don't think it's the same sort of stealing. I think I'm actually promoting it. For example, if I stole, a DVD or I stole your television, Tuna, I'm not going to go out and advertise, this is Tuna's TV, he has great channels on it, or this is Tuna's banjo, he plays music on it. When I put on music, I'm going to share it with friends, I'm going to share it with family members. I'm actually going to say, hey, this is increasing music. And a friend of mine, Edwin, who is a local rapper, I've probably illegally, given out his music without his written consent, and I've actually increased his following among UVM students. I'm sure he's happy about it.
Yeah. How about that argument that you download a song and you like it, so you actually go out and buy the CD? This is an argument that I've heard. What do you think?
I think that's the case for me. I wouldn't know half the music I know now had it not been for downloading, one good song that I liked, researching the band, checking out their biography, buying a CD, and going to concerts. I mean, music downloading doesn't mean the end of profits for artists. I mean, I think, at least in my case, it led me to spend more.
On the other hand, I think it's sort of unrealistic to assume that once someone has purchased or they've downloaded an entire album, for free, illegally, that they're going to go out and buy the exact same album on, at a record store and then upload it onto their computer and put it onto their iPod. It's just not, they've already got the songs. They have the album, essentially. So I don't think that it's realistic to assume that that's the way that trends are going to go.
Okay, I want to bring up the issue of recording industry sabotage of download sites. It's my understanding that what they've done is uploaded a lot of dummy files that look sort of like it, and what happens is you download it and you get all the way till it's almost all downloaded and then it aborts, right? And it's very frustrating because you're trying to download these songs and they're all aborting. And I was reading that 60% of all the files are now dummy files. So they're trying to discourage people who are downloading because it's so difficult and such a pain in the butt that they might as well go out and buy it. You guys know anything like that or heard about that?
I've heard about that, and the thing that's interesting is when we're talking about music, it's kind of a universal that all companies do that, but there are a lot of small labels and there are a lot of certain genres of music that actually promote it and don't mind because they're only on vinyl or it's just not a way to get out. These are the big labels that are trying to get out, the Fall Out Boys of the record company and trying to get them promoted. And to tell you the truth, I think a silent Fall Out Boy record sounds way better than a regular Fall Out Boy record. And secondly, I think it's within their right to do that. Because they're taking their own personal decision making, but if they're going to do that, they have to respect the personal decision making of the person to download it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the idea that they want to tell you who to listen to. But I think it's an interesting question that we should talk about is when you listen to music and you listen to different songs, you don't have to buy the whole album, but you're able to pick and choose, find out stuff you like, find out bands you like. I think you're able to more refine your tastes.
I agree.
And I think that makes a more sophisticated music listening population, and I think that's better than anything else.
Yeah, I think all of us have purchased albums where there were two good songs and we're like, damn, we spent all this money on a bunch of crap.
Yeah.
And so this breaks through that, and I think it rewards artists who have more good songs instead of artists who have a flashy album pack and a couple of good songs. Let me talk about some options that have been spun out. One is the new Proposal announced by Apple. Apple wants to put the entire EMI catalog on the iTunes store and sell the songs for $1.29 a song, more than the 99 cents they're currently thinking, but there's no DRM, no digital rights management. You get the MP3, you can do whatever you want with it. Put it on CDs, sell it, whatever. What do you think about that solution?
I think it's good because the thing I like about Apple is they let you listen to the song or like not a 10-second but a 30-second snippet. And if anyone remembers this, in the early 90s, Blockbuster tried to do Blockbuster Music and started a CD store, and that was their whole purpose, that you could pick and choose and we'll make a CD for you of the songs you like. I think it's a good idea and you can do whatever you want with it. You know, and I think it's a way of battling it, and I don't see an alternative. But I mean, there's no way you're going to beat this.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and
I think that, you know, I mean, it's better that once you purchase a song, that song becomes yours and you can do whatever you want with it. I think that's a great idea. But yeah, as Jake said, you know, it's not going to stop the illegal downloading industry. Like,
for 0 cents.
Exactly. I mean, it's just not, you can't compete.
Okay, how about this? Someone proposes a $60 a year flat fee on all internet users, and that would more than make up for all the music and video rights. So then that money goes to reimburse artists.
I think that would fail miserably. I mean, the public does not like a flat tax if they're not using the service. And to be realistic, is somebody's grandmother who, you know, uses the internet to check the news or whatever, is she going to be downloading music, and why should that person have to pay an extra $60 a year for someone on a fixed income? That's, you know, nothing to sneeze at. So I think that would get rejected immediately.
Mm-hmm. Well, what about you go to a hotel and you pay X amount of money and you pay for the pool even if you don't use it?
Well, that's true. I mean, the word flat tax kind of reminds me of the 1992 election when Forbes used it as a big campaign platform. And I think it targets people that make a choice. Like, you go to a hotel because you need the service. Not necessarily, you know, it's an amenity. It's something you get extra. You don't necessarily do that with the internet, and I think, you know, you're completely right about this, Sam, that it targets the poor and people where, you know, the internet is not a luxury. It's actually something that they might need for school, it might need for something, and if you're already paying cable bills, that's $100 a month. Now it's $1,200 a year for the internet, and that's not a price that some families just can't afford.
Okay. All right, well, we have less than 30 seconds left, so I have a question for you. 5 years from now, will things be any different? Quickly, Jake Meany.
Yes, because you will be able to insert it into your body and listen to it. It'll be bio versions.
Ooh, Joe Torda.
Illegal downloading will become even easier than it is today.
All right, Sam Ricker.
You can't stop change. I agree with both of you.
Okay, great. And what do I think? Yeah, I think the CD is going to be almost dead, and we can't even begin to anticipate what the next step is that's going to make it even easier to get all the media you want for even less. Thanks a lot for watching this week's edition of Flashpoint. Make sure to check us out online, and don't forget, think for yourself.
Great.
Boom.